All right, all praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High Elohim of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I want to say peace to each and every one of you in the name of His Son, Yehovah HaMashiach, who we know as Jesus the Christ. So I was blessing each and every single time that I can come before to bring a message contained in His Word, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. In today's message, I want to deal with the identity of Israel and how you know who Israel is. Most people don't realize it, but there are a lot of different groups throughout the world who claim to be Israelites. You can go to those and even places as far as China and different parts of Asia, India. You have European groups who claim to be the chosen. United States is Ephraim and Manasseh, all kind of nonsense. And even the people in the land today who occupy that land who claim to be his chosen. I was listening to some things on the temple and the building of it, and one was talking about how there being in the land is a fulfillment of prophecy. What more do you need to prove it? Well, what you need is the word. And when you actually examine prophecy, and not just in what I'm talking about today, but even what he was talking about, a regathering of Israel. Israel is not regathered in the land today. That didn't happen. You got some people in the land claiming to be the people, but that's not the regathering of Israel. And when you read prophecy closely, that what they're talking about is a farce. When he regathers his people, he's going to bring them into the wilderness. That's the Old Testament. Even if you don't believe in the New Testament, that Israel's going to be regathered when the Lord returns. Read the Old Testament. It's telling you that they're going into the wilderness. Those people that go in the wilderness, you're getting on a plane and then just going in the land come on. It's a farce. So how do you know who Israel is? You know who Israel is. You can identify them through the curses. And that's what I want to deal with today. This is Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and verse 15. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15 reads, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." Now, this is key, because you understand why Israel was cursed. And Israel is a black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world. And they weren't cursed because they're black. They were cursed because of their disobedience. And he said, "Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field." So wherever you go, you're going to be cursed. "Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store." That speaks to economy. It says, "Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy lamb, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out." And see, so he went into a covenant with his people, and the violation of this covenant, he said he's going to curse them. This is a fundamental principle in the Bible. Blessings in life for obedience, curses in death for disobedience. This is verse 25. I would encourage you to read all of Deuteronomy 28. I always say that's the Israelites' favorite chapter. But when you read it closely, you read it and continue to read it, you understand that quite clearly, unequivocally, those people that claim to be his chosen are not it. This is verse 25. They're not cursed economically. That's just one example. How you cursed and you prospering, and all your enemies in the land is surrounded by your enemies right now. Yeah, they're not the people. How you the people when the Bible describes Moshe as looking like an Egyptian, Joseph looking like an Egyptian? The ancient Egyptians were black. Whether you're talking about the earliest reign of Egyptians, or you're talking about when the Nubians came in during the Kushite taking Egypt over in that 25th dynasty, those are all black people. We look at their archaeology; they're black people. Now you had other nations, you had other people that came in, but the ancient Egyptians were black. Okay. And so, therefore, these Hebrews, these Semitic people, they're the black Semitic people. But nevertheless, he said, "The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth." So he's saying you're going into captivity. This is verse. Let's pick it up at verse 30. He says something here. He says, "Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her." Now, what does he mean by that? He's telling you that, not that you're going to, go to work, honey, I'm going to work, and then some man sneaking in the back door. No, your wife will be taken from you. He said, thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. All right. So you're not gonna prosper. And what is this? This is the experience that we've experienced here in America. Not just in America, but certainly in America. He says in verse 32, he says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Your children are going to be sold from you. That's what happened to our people. Let's pick it up at verse 36. He said, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And that's what we do here. That's what we do when we've been scattered, serving all these false gods by the ones who enslaved, through the ones who enslaved us. They gave us hell, they gave us enslavement, and then they gave us a false god. Here they gave us white Jesus. That's what they gave us. They gave us a Europeanized white Christ and said, hey, this is who you need to be worshiping. Now get back in that field and pick that cotton. That's what they did. So like even to the point where even though the Bible describes him as black, he said his feet look like the color of burned brass as if it had been burned in the oven. And then his, he likens his hair to hair. He said hair like wool. And we know Israel is a black people. Nevertheless, you tell some of our people that he was black, they still have an image of a white Christ in their head, in their mind. That's why I wrote the book, Hair Like Wool, Feet Like Burned Brass. Because the color of Jesus and other burning truths concerning the Messiah. Because this is something that we are plagued with. So it's one thing when you tell somebody something, it's another thing when you show them an image. And that false image has been shown over and over and over again, despite the fact that the earliest images of Christ depict him as a black man. You can go to Europe, you can go to Italy and see these things. I've shown them on these lessons many times, but nevertheless, when we close our eyes, we see that white man. Now, is this a kick on white people? This is not me necessarily saying anything against white people. This is me saying the truth, or speaking truth. And so, because some people say it's not a big deal. Well, if it's not a big deal, why'd you change? It's definitely a big deal. Because as that Catholic priest in Malcolm X in the movie, he said, well, God is white. Isn't it obvious? and Denzel was playing Malcolm. He said, well, that is obvious, right? Clearly you're telling lies, right? So you told those lies for a reason, right? Even in the Talmud, where you get this idea of being cursed in the color through Ham. Your color is not a curse, but nevertheless, Israel is a black people, and we are serving gods of wood and stone. And then he says, and thou shalt become I'm in verse 37, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. And so people are going to have something negative to say about you wherever you go. Now, let's pick it up at verse 45. Again, I would say read all this whole chapter in its entirety. But in verse 45, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee. Let me pick it up at verse 44. Because it says something. It talks about the stranger getting it within thee. He going to come high, you're going to become low. Then he says, and he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. How are you cursed? Because we know Israel was disobedient. How were you cursed? And then you the head, and then you doing all the lending? No, we don't. We know who controls lending in this country overall. We know who everybody, when they go to the bank, when it's all said and done, the one at the top is sitting there. It ain't one. It's not one of us. It's not even usually just a straight up German. It's somebody who's claiming to be the chosen today. They control the lending institutions of this world. Those are the Rothschilds. They are the ones. It's not a coincidence every time you see the leader of the Federal Reserve, chairman of the Federal Reserve, that is because they control it. They control it. And you better not say anything about it. But nevertheless, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. He says, why? because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Then it says, now, the next thing, these curses are a sign. So when you find the one that have all these curses, when you find the one his wife was taken, you find the one his children were sold, you find the one he cursed wherever he go. Then it says, and he's been taken captive in all these countries. Who is this talking about? See, it's not just slavery. It's a combination of these things, and it's the mode of slavery. How did you come to be a slave? Slavery is a human thing, but what happened when we were slaves? We were taken in ships all over the world. This is verse 46, and they shall be a sign upon thee. What is they? Talking about the curses. And they shall be a sign upon thee, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Skip down to verse 64. He says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth, even to the other. That's why you read in Matthew 24, when the Lord comes back, he's going to gather his very elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Why? Because they have been scattered all over the earth. He says, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot ever rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, a failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, well, God, it will even. And at even thou shalt say, well, God, it will morn. In other words, man, I wish it was. In the day, you're going to say, I wish it was night. At night, you're going to say, I wish it was day. Why? Because your situation is not going to change. Except for the fear of thine heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. And some will say, well, this don't apply. You free, you this, you that. You are still a servant in another country. You have never been home. And some will say, why don't you get on a plane and fly somewhere? As if that means that that's your homeland now, where you have sovereignty as a people. No, that's not the case. And the Lord is going to show in due time what's what. It's not a coincidence that all over the world, you got these black people in Africa, right? In the Caribbean, in the Americas, in Europe, saying, yeah, we the people. That's not a coincidence. And you're not going to be able to keep that cat in the bag much longer. I don't think you can keep it in the bag now. It's mainstream. You saw they did the Kyrie. He put that. He just posted something. Hey, now he public enemy number one. When they say, you heard they did Kyrie, I thought he had said. So I don't even think he said anything. I think he just posted something, talking about a book about the Hebrews, and that was it. But nevertheless, in verse 68, it said, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Now, why Egypt? Egypt is synonymous with bondage for the Hebrews. So it said, the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now you have to ask yourself, who are the people that went into slavery by way of slave ships all over the world? That's none other than the so-called Negro. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter, because he said these are curses. Well, we'll see another sign of somebody being cursed. This is Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter. Deuteronomy 21, and we're going to pick it up at verse 22. Deuteronomy 21 and verse 22. It says, and if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. So that's like how Christ, he was hanged on the tree. That was like a modern day lynching, right? Well, think about what's happened to us. We've been hanged on a tree. Now, he was hanged on a tree because the curse that was supposed to be upon humanity, he took upon himself, right? That's why he said, Ele, Ele, lama sabachthani, which is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Because he separated from him because the sins of the world were on him. But nevertheless, he bore the sin of man. But nevertheless, it says, for he that is hanged is accursed of God. Who has been hanging on all these trees? That's a sign of an accursed people by God. That's us. That's us. So now let's continue. Let's go to Luke, the 21st chapter. So how did this take place that we ended up here? What exactly what happened? Luke, the 21st chapter. And this is key because this is the Lord prophesying of what's going to happen to his people when they are besieged by the Romans. Okay, this is Luke the 21st chapter and verse 20. It says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." Like he told him in Matthew 24, he said, "See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." His disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming of the end of the world?" So he connected it to that. But what he was talking about initially was the destruction of Jerusalem, and that took place some roughly between 30 and 40 years later during the siege by Titus and the Romans, who that culminated in 70 AD. They ransacked Jerusalem, where they destroyed the temple, right? And what happened to Israel? Israel, those who were not killed, and you know what? You read the accounts, they were crucifying up to 500 people a day. Cursed of God. That's why he tells you only if you know the time of thy visitation. But he says, "And we shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies," because the curse of God hanging on trees. He said, "Then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains." It's going to be another time to flee, but that's a different lesson. It said, "Let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the day of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and unto them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall," notice what it says here in verse 24, "and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations." That's what we were just reading in Deuteronomy 28. You're going into captivity. And he said, "And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." So what happened? Many died in the siege, many died in battle, and many were taken captive then and sold. And those who weren't, they went as Israel did, because they had settlements in the interior of Africa. Israel is simply geographically East Africa, but they went into the interior of Africa. They settled amongst these people, and these are the people who, when the transatlantic slave trade took off, were more susceptible to being sold. That's why if you look in the history of most blacks today, they say, "Oh yeah, they eat Yibo," right? I'm talking about in America. Well, Yibo, they say, means Hebrew. Go to Nigeria and you see that. So it's not just that, it's a number of people. You go to Ghana, you see this same thing. So what's going on here? How is it? Why they saying it with the Ashanti or the Igbo, the Yoruba Jews? What is going on with the Limba? What's going on with Beta Israel? It's other groups. It's because you had some people who came from outside of those places who came in, and they were the chosen, and they were in the diaspora even until this day. So now that's what happened. That's how they got into the land. Into Africa. And that's why if you look at old maps, like from the 1747, you see the map. I've showed it before, where you see it says Kingdom of Judah, and it's West Africa. Yehuda means Judah on the west coast of Africa. These were Hebrews that were sold. And that's where they are now. They are in captivity. How do you know that? You know that through the curses. So it's not, Israel is just like, Christ is the Messiah because he came in the volume of the book. He fits the description of the one that was born. He tells you he's going to be born in Bethlehem. He tells you, he said, as David, they pierced my hands and my feet. He was going to be crucified. He's going to be born of a virgin. All these things is telling you. He talked about his familiar friend betraying him. This is all prophesied of. But now so you know who Christ is, not because your mother or grandmother told you who he was, but you know who he is because of scriptures. He told him, his own disciples, "Oh fool, after he was resurrected, oh fools who slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken." Right? So because of what's written. Well, you know who Israel is now. You can't go by the word of somebody who say they is Israel. I'm reading a book now. It's some white. It's on a different subject, but It's some white people. They trying to. The author is trying to claim that Israel is European. They the ones that this is foolishness. So you know who Israel is because of what's written, the prophecies and the curses that are upon these people. That Moshe is telling you what's going to happen to his people, for the children of Israel, before they even go into the land that they're going into. They're going, and he tells them before they even go into the land that they're going. Ultimately, they're going to end up back in bondage by way of ships and be sold as bondmen and bondwomen. Nobody's going to redeem you, meaning nobody's going to get you out of this bondage. You know who is, though? And when the Lord returns, he's going to gather his very elect. That's when Israel is going, and he's going to bring them right back into the wilderness like he did before. He doesn't change. He's going to plead with them, therefore, and he's going to purge out the rebels. And he's going to bring them into the bond of the covenant. So with that, brothers and sisters, I want to say peace to each and every one of you. And it is always my prayer that you were edified.